Hi, my name is Sal, and I'll be sharing First Thessalonians 5 with you today. First Thessalonians 5 is the fifth and last chapter of the fifth epistle to the Thessalonians in the New Testament. Paul the Apostle likely wrote it in Corinth around 50-51 AD for the church Thessalonica. This chapter contains a message about Christ's second coming and various final exhortations and greetings. So Paul reminds the Thessalonians that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night, as it mentioned in verse 2, that is quite unexpectedly. So they should be sober and put on the breastplate of faith and love and the helmet of hope of salvation. So let's read verse 2. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. So let's break it down. Know perfectly. So as it was made plain and evident with high certainty to them, either from the words of Jesus Christ in Matthew 24:42-44, or from Paul and his co-workers' teachings. The day of the Lord refers to the day when Jesus will reveal himself to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and the Judge of the whole earth, as he will appear in his glory. This is sometimes referred to as the day of the Son of Man, or the day of God. Also the day of redemption of the body from the grave, from mortality. And the last day, when resurrection of the dead will happen, as well as of the day of judgment, when Jesus Christ will come to judge the quick, the living, and the dead. The third point is, come as a thief in the night. When people are unaware that the Lord himself in that day will come, which is mentioned in Revelation 3:3, Revelation 16:1, not to the character of the thief, nor to the goal of his coming, but the sudden manner of it, when not thought of and looked for, or at least expected. Since the Thessalonians knew this full well, it was needless for the apostle to write about the time and the season, that it could no more be known and fixed than the coming of the thief into any one of their houses. When we also look at verse 8, we read, but let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and as a helmet of the hope of salvation. In this verse, Paul exposes a triad of faith, love, and hope in that specific order, which he introduced in 1 Thessalonians 1, verse 3, which says, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and as a helmet, the hope of salvation, which he alludes in Isaiah 59:17. He also put on a righteousness as a breastplate and a helmet of salvation on his head, where Paul changes the breastplate of righteousness to the breastplate of faith and love, and adds hope to the helmet of salvation. Further in verse 9, for God has not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ. Appointed us to wrath, or destined us to wrath. It's referring to the outpouring of God's wrath on the earth on the day of the Lord, which is brought out in 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 2 through 4. So ultimately, he's given us some final exhortations as well as greetings, and that's from 12 through 28. And here's I could summarize in verse 17 and verse 27. It gives us some advice, greetings, prayers, and it's in Paul's handwriting, and it's a closing the benediction. And it says, pray without ceasing. This verse is the basis of an unceasing prayer, as used in the Eastern Orthodox tradition of hesychasm for practicing the Jesus prayer. And in verse 27, he speaks of, I charge you by the Lord that this epistle be read to all the holy brethren. So let's heed this exhortation to share this epistle and the whole gospel to others. Have a blessed day.